Well, everybody, good morning. Thank you for joining me from which I'm sure is a wonderful, lovely Friday coming off of the Scope conference. It looks, my friends, like you all are healthy and nobody brought any creeping crud back from Scope. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Love it.
No sickness, only coffee. It's good.
No sickness, only coffee. I love it. Fantastic. Sweet. Well, you know what? I am really excited to be joined this morning by my friends, Joe Dustin, Terry Holder, Sergio Armani, Rick Ward, and Scott Ballinger, who I literally ran into many times at Scope, even though the word on the street is, and let's talk about this first, the Scope attendance numbers. It seems to me like Scope has been growing and growing and growing every year. And I heard sneaky rumors that there were 4,500 people this year. Did any of you hear any final numbers?
It's higher.
Yeah, I think it's up higher. Yeah.
It's about 5,100 at the end.
Woo! And
Yeah,
who was at
maybe.
the early? What's the earliest Scope any of you have been at?
Oh, 10 plus years.
ago.
Yeah, before it went to Florida even.
Whoa,
Yeah.
really? Where was it before
Oh.
Florida?
It was up in it's either Philly or Boston. I have to go back and
They didn't call it Scope
look
back
at the
then.
archives. And you remember the one year the weather wiped out about a third of the attendees and speakers. And had it been the weekend before, that could have happened. So they rolled the dice on that a little bit, and we always have our fingers crossed that it doesn't impact it.
Geez, so how many people were there then, Scott?
In the early days, I think between 800 and 1,100 was a really successful event, probably.
I'd say probably 900 or so. Yeah.
Wow, what a time. Well, every time I turned around, I saw somebody else I knew, and it really does seem like Scope is becoming the conference. I think back in the day, it used to be DIA, right? If you weren't at the DIA, who were you? And
It's true.
now we're in Scopeville.
Yeah, Scope's definitely the way to start the year in our sort of industry. It makes sense, right? February, everyone has their budgets, everyone has their goals. It's like off to the races, right? And everyone's here in one place. You can have all your meetings.
The clinical ops focus obviously is still a big part of it, but it is expanded to become where sites and site networks come together, private equity. There's more private equity folks there that are either involved in the site consolidation or service providers, CROs, really anyone that kind of even touches clinical operations and clinical trial conduct. You see folks coming to Scope now.
Yeah, good point, Rick.
But question for you, who here remembers partnerships?
Yeah.
Partnerships with CROs, that's a blast from the past, isn't it?
Right,
Yeah.
right. And what happened to that, right? It outpriced the people that needed to be there. And if you take a look at Scope today, in my opinion, and I talk to a lot of people across multiple segments of this industry, and they're frustrated. It's gotten too big. If you were trying to schedule meetings pre-Scope, right? The top 1,000 people that everybody wants to get in touch with are getting anywhere from 50 to 100 messages a day, and they just stop responding, right? So the smaller guys can't even get in front of the people that they want to get into. So I don't know. It's still a great conference. I love it. I did a LinkedIn post on it, something I will continue to go to, but I think there's a problem now.
It's a catch-22 because if a conference is successful and the content's good and the networking opportunities are good, it attracts more people. And then as it gets larger, it gets harder to maintain that, what makes it special. So there's the challenge. I do think that you mentioned partnerships with CROs originally, and I think they ignored a lot of the warnings and complaints from folks, and that kind of was the beginning of the end. I think if the Cambridge Health Institute folks continue to stay in touch with the constituents, then they'll find ways to make it still a good event to come to. But as Joe mentioned, part of it is the timing of it. It's how we launch our year. I was actually surprised that next year they're planning on it in early March. It's no longer that like right at the beginning of the year timeline. It'll be interesting to see what the impact there is, because once you get into March, you're now competing with a lot of other events, and companies have started. They're no longer thinking of it as a launching pad for the year. So that'll be a different change.
an interesting observation, Rick. I think a lot of people were coming straight from their sales kickoffs. Tara, I know that you came straight from your sales kickoff, and I ran into Jen Mintz, and she came straight from her sales kickoff. And so it does feel like this is the way my company kicks off, and this is the way my industry kicks off.
Well, and Sergio, to follow on to your point, and we were just talking about the attendance continues to grow, the price tag as well to attend. And we think back when it was 900 people and what the fees were to attend then, and or who even has access to those kinds of budgets. But it's been more than once that once I sign up for Scope, my credit card gets frozen for an unusually large charge. You have to like unfreeze it because it's a big number.
Yeah. What is it? $20,000 for a booth now?
Yeah, I've heard all different sort of flavors and ranges, but they also lock down any side events. So if you were trying to have a side event in the hotel, you got to write them a check.
Yeah, they did that a couple of years ago. We tried.
Well, there's so much competition. If you want to do like a happy hour, you have to be a sponsor of the event to do something in the hotel. Yeah. Speaking of the event, I pulled some data earlier about a week ago. So this is a chart I pulled when I got the attendee list, of course, is like the hardest thing to get. But of course, with AI magic and using the apps and various computer vision, I pulled about 3,000 attendees. This was the end of December. So if we're at 5,100 now, so 2,000 people registered within the last month of Scope.
Wow.
Which is insane. First of all, how many people are going last minute to this place? Well, how are you not planning this ahead of time at this point? To me, I never understood that, right? Well, of course, in our industry, conferences are not the only thing we should be doing. We should be actually doing trials and doing work. But I always thought Scope starts the year, CNS Summit ends the year. Like, why don't you just plan these things ahead of time? Apparently, a lot of people still go last minute.
And I think the first time attendees, I feel like we're quite high. It's crazy that we still have first time attendees coming.
Of course.
So many that were first time.
So while the big number is a little bit lower, the directionally, I think this is right. So the friends at Right View Intelligence here ran a report based on a very limited amount of data that I gave them, which the AI went and categorized everything for us, and it's pretty accurate. But 26% of the event was all sponsors, which is the biggest number. That's what you want to see in a kind of event like this, which is, are we presenting to vendors or are we presenting to actually like actual people? So that's good. About 23% are all tech companies and providers and whatnot. And also it's a bit of the legend on the side. I think the AI did get a little bit confused with service providers, tech providers, CROs, sometimes like a CRO that has a tech provider as a tech angle to it got miscategorized, but directionally, like, the tech providers are a large chunk of this. 21%, or is that 21% or 16%? What is that? It's 18. Oh wait, 16% is other. So that's everyone who's unemployed. That's consultants. That's patients. That's anyone that is not affiliated with a company that could be categorized here. But the biggest increase, sites, 11% are sites. Yeah. Last year, I think this was in the single digits, like maybe 3%.
Well, something that I thought was interesting, and it could be, I got 3 different invites to Scope based on 3 different companies that I've been to, right? But when 2 clients of mine shared their list with me, and it was only because they needed some help getting that data into their CRM. And just on 2 scrolls down, I noticed about 15 errors where people that I know were listed being at a company that they haven't been at in 5 or 10 years.
Huh.
So
I noticed that.
I don't know. I didn't know where that list came from. So
that's wild. I think one of the things that I kept asking people is, did you make it to any sessions? Because there was so many people to see, and the exhibit hall was just gigantic. And so I want to hear if any of you made it to any sessions. Tara, I know you did because I literally ran into you coming out of one.
Yeah. So I try to get to at least 4 or 5. It's hard. They overlap. There's a lot of content. I think it's very important to go to the opening session. It really sets the stage for what we're all there focusing on. So Mark, CMO, really kicked us off on that opening session and truly grounding everybody back to the patient centricity focus. So everything that we offer, everything that we provide, everything that the sponsors are working for is to really move that needle. So his message, I think, really resonates well with everybody in the room, and really focusing on whatever you're doing in the industry, we should be translating that back to moving with speed, efficiency, removing burden in every aspect and light that we're looking at in terms of our delivery. So, and really, he made a point about just the stop finding reasons to collect extra data just to make it hard across the board. We're spending increased amounts of time, money to collect these additional data points, and he's pretty strong on that really start fresh and look new. Don't keep reusing same protocols. Really take a fresh view on establishing what is important and critical to quality to collect. So that one was the most impactful for me. I love to start there, ground myself, and then move around to all the data and outsourcing and operations and risk-based monitoring, all the good things that fill in from there.
Love that. Fellas, anybody else? Yeah, Scott.
I went to the Monday opening session where Jane Miles talked to 2 patients. And I think back on several conferences and even back to the pharmaceutical rep days when we would do a drug launch. But hearing from patients is pretty impactful. And there were some key takeaways there too, that when they went into these cancer trials and they thought they were going to be a VIP, and it was quite the opposite experience for them. They felt much more towards that guinea pig spectrum that we're sometimes painted with. And that's really eye-opening. And you have to think about if that's the experience, we've got a lot of work to do. But hearing directly from the patients to start the meeting off, it gives you a different grounding. And I think that was a good move. And I've seen it at other conferences, and it's just inescapable when you think about what we do and our various roles and how far away or how close we may be to a patient experience. But that was a great way to start it off on Monday.
My strategy hasn't changed, although my process did. So for the last 3 or 4 years that companies that I've worked for have paid for me to go to Scope, and we had a booth. And I spent a little bit of time at my booth, and I went to some sessions just because this was the first year that I started my own company and the price tag was so high to pay for a pass. I did what I've done the last 4 years, and that is set up my office at the coffee shop. Because if anybody that I want to see or meet with is going to either be standing in line or walking past, and I could get in front of everybody that I needed to, much easier than trying to fight for their time downstairs in the exhibit hall or outside the exhibit hall. So it worked really well for me.
Yeah.
Well, Sergio, you touched upon the challenge of getting in front of folks. And I know that for large conferences back in the day, it was DIA and a little bit less emphasized these days. For us, the SCRS Site Solution Summit's still a really big one, but Scope is about as big as they get for us. And because of that competition and the size, as a sales and marketing leader, I've just continued to really reinforce how important it is to put a lot of time of planning, reaching out, not just blast emails to the attendee list, like everybody does that, right? But go through your network, figure out who do you know that's going to be there, and leverage them for introductions, get them to bring other folks to the meeting, and just a tremendous amount of time. If you've got about 30 or so hours of time at Scope, you put about 100 hours into the planning process starting on January 1 when you get back. And then, of course, you've got the challenge of documenting everything that happened and really having robust follow-up. I still think no matter how large the conference gets, if you do all those things really well, your return on investment is still positive. But the days of thinking you can book a booth, show up and rely on exhibit hall traffic to get you what you're looking for, those days are long past. So that's just my word of advice to other exhibitors in terms of, if you're there to network and make meaningful connections, then it requires a lot of pre-work and a lot of post-work.
Agreed.
I think it's so true. People, I have some friends of mine that are recruiters, right? And they're looking around for folks, the notebooks they have and the amount of planning they're doing of everything they do to pre is insane. And they have a really, really good good progress report at the end of people they met. And a lot of that, we know a lot of the work is done at the bar and done in the hallways. So the prep is so important. And an event this big, it's even more important. What I will say about, if we're talking about like the sales aspect of things first, the platform that the Scope uses it's interesting. It's actually called Swap Card. And it's probably one of the better ones out there right now. DIA uses the same one. The networking aspect of it is so much better than anything else I've seen when people actually use it. I like how in this particular event, everyone gets access to the messaging. It's not shut off. You have to pay extra or something. So everyone has it. Also, it's interesting to note that at Scope, actually, the pharma folks, they don't just get free tickets. Like a lot of other conferences, they just everyone gets free tickets, and sometimes they show up and sometimes they don't. But Scope, they all pay. If you notice, there's 70 people from AbbVie at Scope. So they do like packages with pharma where they all show up at a discount and they get on stage and they do a whole, like the Micah Lieberman and his team really have an interesting way of how they handle this with packages. If you're speaking and you're on the faculty of Scope, then I think you get a free ticket. But otherwise, everyone's paying. So they're engaged, right? And if you're getting a free ticket, you almost never log into the app. You have no skin in the game of like actually doing anything, whether on either side. And so it's nice when you know that like people are paying. Also, when you pay, the lunch is usually better. So that's also good.
Oh, you know what?
No one was going to starve to death at Scope.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to talk about the food, honestly, because I go to a lot of conferences and I was sitting with Jen and Wendy and Laurie, and we were like, oh my gosh, this food is incredible. And the lunch was like, it would have been an exorbitant dinner. The food was so good.
It was good.
And the tonnage of sushi. Normally you think about sashimi and sushi by the piece, and they were rolling it out on the pallet.
That was wild. Oh my gosh, Scott, we were sitting there watching everybody eat their sushi, and it was freezing cold this year. It was so chilly outside. Oh my gosh. You know what I want to talk about before we're getting close to our time is the exhibit hall. And I want to ask you guys, what did you see on the exhibit hall that blew your mind? Because to me, there's one answer.
That blew your mind. I can't even think what you would be saying. What blew
Live tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my team got a tattoo.
What
did they get? Was it dopamine or adrenaline?
You get the dopamine molecule on his arm. He has, not surprisingly, this is not his first tattoo, but he has a bit of a theme going, and ironically, it's fit in with his overall theme. So he was one of the first to sign up, and I think people questioned whether or not he was going to do it, but his name is Eric Elander, and I've worked with him for about 1.5 years now. So when he said he was getting a tattoo, I knew he wasn't kidding. He went through with it. I heard there were a lot of people backing out at the last minute, so they had a wait list over there, but they were busy and packed every day. A lot of people got tattoos at Scope this year.
That's a great booth. I've never seen that.
You just know that the first time someone brought that up at a meeting, others were like, you're crazy. We're not going to give tattoos at Scope. And look, here we are talking about it.
That was a wonderful example of viral marketing. I walked right up to them. This was the 1N Health booth. And I said, please tell me how this got past legal. I don't know how it got past legal.
They had the health department sign off on it.
They had their legal, they had the Rosen's legal, Scope's legal, the state of Florida. They had to have 2 working sinks.
And I think they edged me out in terms of buzz around pickleball versus the tattoo. We had to take second place to the tattoo booth this year, but there was plenty of buzz around pickleball too. So
come on, Rick.
Like, they are a patient recruitment company, right? So you want to talk about doing your own viral things, being able to get attention, get eyeballs on something that immediately translates to, we probably know how to do this. And that's it serves a dual purpose. I think it was really smart.
Yeah.
Next year, we're going to do laser eye surgery so you can see the results more clearly.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in.
That's what we're doing. That's the direction we're going in. Yeah.
why not?
I love that. Rick, so your pickleball really, I mean, it more than doubled this year, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Up until this year, pickleball was a unofficial, off to the side type of a thing. The folks at Scope were cooperative, and we would reserve the courts. But last year we had about 40 people come out. So I was thinking this is the year that we become a more official part of Scope. So we sponsored it through the Scope organizers. It was on the official program. We promoted it. When I was getting the court set up on Sunday and it was in the low 40s, I'm thinking no one is going to show up to play pickleball tomorrow. And even on Monday, though, it was slightly warmer. It was breezy and chilly. And we had over 100 people show up for pickleball on Monday. And it was fantastic. And folks had a great time. We're locked in to do it again next year, but we got to do some planning because I don't think it's going to be 53 degrees and breezy next year in March in Orlando. So we got to be prepared for a bigger crew, but it was a ton of fun.
I love that. I see lots of people in the comments that are super surprised about the tattoo, and a couple of people who said they went to the Creo pickleball and it was a blast. But you bring up a good topic here, Rick, which is events in general. And I know everybody here attended some events. Were they big? Were they exorbitant? Were they so much larger than they were years before? Let's talk about events.
Yeah, and we personally kept it small and did more intimate dinners versus doing anything large. So I can't comment on any of the big ones, but I've typically stopped in at Medidata's and others. But yeah, we had small intimate dinners each night and great conversations. So we kept it small this year. And just a change I saw in the exhibit hall was they started an innovation theater. So we've seen that at other conferences, and so it was over kind of where my team was. So we popped in here or there. I think it was a little strange where it was placed. And I talked to Mike a little bit about that. Maybe needs a little bit more centralized and some more theming around it. But I love that they're branching out into different aspects. And so they're always open to ideas. Met with a lot of the folks just on the planning team, and just they're always looking to get flow better, more return on investment. Mike and his team are very invested in a good experience. So yeah, but that was different, the innovation theater. So see what it looks like next year.
There's always a logistical challenge at Scope in terms of anything offsite, because it's a great venue. There's lots of great space and things to do on site, but when you plan things offsite, you got this incredible log jam of Ubers and Lyfts coming through. Yeah. We headed out to the Top Golf event that was hosted by Clue Points and Ignite Data, and we ended up having to jump in an Uber with someone just to get off site, and then we got out and called an Uber from there so we could get to where we were going. And I don't know there's an easy way to fix that. That's just kind of a reality when the conference keeps getting bigger. But there were a lot of good events each night. There was 3 or 4 or 5 I was aware of, and with folks that I know and enjoy spending time with, and having to pick from one from the other was tough because you only get really a couple of free nights.
That's so true. I'm glad you brought up the transportation. I saw our friends at Trialby had tour buses, and I was like, that makes really good sense, because the dinners that we went to offsite, people were showing up 20, 30 minutes past the scheduled time because you can't beat that Uber line.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting.
The line, if you looked at it, on the last night that I was there, I did a dinner. Same thing. I got there 20 minutes late, and I was frustrated. And I looked at the app, in the line for him to get into the resort, like he was dead stopped, like 300 yards out in the main road.
Jeez.
Not even in, right? Because there was that many vehicles trying to get into the resort.
I think Trialby probably has to, if you're going to do that, the next best investment is group transportation, because that problem won't change. And Rick, that was pretty creative to go off site with somebody on the Uber and then fetch another one past the logjam that Sergio just mentioned.
And is when you call the Uber, you can only send it to the main entrance, but yet there's another entrance on the side where the buses go. Yeah. There's one down by the conference center. Like, you could have 3 different places to go. And I don't know why they don't. I guess you could call the Uber and say, go down the hill and go around the traffic, but that's manual, right? So
just walk down the street. I walked many times. Just you walk down, find your Uber, and there's enough places where they can turn around. Or actually, there's Chipotle across the street. Bring your walking shoes, walk across the street, pick up at the Chipotle. Got to get creative when you got to get some of it.
I also thought it was hard so you think about someone who is at a company that's planning an event, and then you think about the people that are looking to attend, right? If you're the buyer, if you will, and versus the others, everything's on Tuesday. And let's see. So Trialby did their event on Monday. I thought that was smart. So Monday night was a good one. There's not much there. But you think about someone who's planning an event in your mind. Imagine you're the person trying to attract people to your event. So Monday, everyone's just getting in. They're probably going to do like intimate, small team dinner or something. And Tuesdays when everyone's here, and then that's like the big night. Wednesday, I see more than half the people leave, right? And so you're limited. But I feel like if you don't do it on Tuesday, you would have a better chance of going because everything is on Tuesday.
It's one of the reasons why we've decided to stick with the pickleball Monday afternoon, because other than the golf event, which is wrapping up by then, it's a little bit of, not everyone's in town and ready to go yet, but we don't have a lot of competition for that time slot. Once you get beyond that, it's tough. But one thing I'll say, I know we're almost out of time, is there's plenty of areas where we can provide feedback to maybe try to improve and address some challenges. But overall, from my perspective, still a fantastic event, a great way to start the year. And I'm particularly proud of the Creo team and what they did in their planning and everything like that. And it was good I saw most of you guys there, as well as a whole lot of other folks that I hardly ever get to see. So that's always a great part of Scope, is just getting face to face with people that you've known for years.
Love that so much, Rick. Thank you. We have just 1 minute left. That felt like a good final thought. Joe, Tara, Scott, Sergio, any final thoughts from you guys?
I think it continues to be the premier event of the beginning of the year. I think there's others throughout the year it's good to stay in touch with. I think if you're in clinical development, it's a place to go to see what's new. I will say, as the years have gone on, content-wise, I'm not that shocked by anything I see there. Maybe that's just because I'm always in like the innovation circle, so I see these things already. But there's nothing like, I haven't seen anything brand new. Oh my God, I can't believe I saw that. But it is nice to see that every year is eventually like a case study that pops up that they weren't allowed to talk about last year because it wasn't done yet. And every now and then you hear more proof points of somebody doing something that other companies will tack on to say, see, we're not the only one doing this. And it drives adoption. So that's a generic statement of anything new that helps us speed along the process of clinical development. So it's good to keep seeing that momentum.
Well, and as Rick said, now the big important role is the follow-up. You've made a big investment in time and money, and now the follow-up is just as important.
Love it. Great. Well, I want to end by saying thank you to my friends who joined me this morning to do the readout. Thanks to everybody who joined us live on LinkedIn. It looks like there were loads of you. Scope was incredible this year. We had great food, saw interesting exhibits, wonderful sessions, and we didn't get to talk about the fashion, but I think we will later. So thank you guys so much for joining us. Looking forward to the next Scope. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.